This is probably the last layout I will build, which is of a narrow gauge system that exists in the southeast canton of Graubünden in Switzerland. The layout is built primarily on 3 different layers, but with a 4th layer underneath of hidden reverse loops. This is the terminus station of Davos. On the far side of the layout is a typical scene that can be found all over Switzerland, a farmyard with lots of activity. And down by the stream, a fisherman. Very popular for picnickers. We can just watch the trains go by. This is outside Gloucester Station, a little roadside cafeteria, and this is the main station of Gloucester's, which is a through station. This is the town centre of Davos, town square. The council are obviously busy with road repairs. This is the entrance to the town of Davos, which is a busy place, both commercially and the railway scene. Station lights are on. And there at the far end on the right is the locomotive depot. Davos is the terminus station. A low-level view of Gloucester's and the shunting yard. And again, very typical of Switzerland, a thriving goods shed. That is the underneath part of the layout, which contains hidden sidings and the reverse loop. Another typical site, sawmill. Busy loading and unloading of timber. Davos is even busier on the freight side. That's an overhead view of the sawmill at Gloucester's, with a train coming down the hill from the upper layer on the right. That's looking from the terminus end at Davos. The station having 3 platforms. Now for some action. This is one of the shunters at Davos. Although the overhead catenary is in place throughout the layout, it is not in fact energized. But the pantographs do make contact all the way round with that overhead wire. A representation of signals on the layout. A freight train departing from Surava station, which is a small through passing loop station on the topmost level, coming down the hill into Davos. The loco is uncoupled. I do have some arrival tracks that are fitted with automatic uncouplers. Once the points are clear, you change electric motors underneath. And the loco moves on to the depot. And lo and behold, the doors close electrically as well. This is the little yard shunter at Gloucestershire. These little locomotives are known as tractors. This one electrically driven. The local cooperative has a fleet of these refrigerated vans, all in different colours with different fruits and vegetables on the side. They make a very colourful sight. This is one of the express passenger locomotives in advertising livery, starting from Sarava station. Coming down the hill over the stream and picnic area. You'll note that this loco has a different livery on either side. These panorama wagons are very popular in the summer, of course. This is a little station at Sarava on the top level. A little shuttle train shuttling frequently between Sarava and Gloucestershire. Where would we be without a steam train? The Regibon actually has two of these locos which are brought out on special occasions and can be hired for individual use. Pulling a rake of old-fashioned Pullman carriages with a van specially adapted to carry bicycles at the rear. Wonderful old things, built in about 1920. Right, now we move to the bottom layer, where I can hide 4 trains, and here's one coming out of the hidden loops, reversing. And is now headed back through Gloucestershire to Davos. All rolling stock are exact replicas of items that actually exist or have existed on the original railway. The gauge of the track, by the way, is metre, 1 metre. Right, having passed the other train and clusters, it now sets off up the bank. This in fact is a representation of the famous Glacier Express with its panorama carriages on the back. These locos are extremely powerful for their size. There he is on the top level, heading through Surava station. He has to stop, you've got a red light. With the line clear, number 107 can now set off. And there he is, having completed a complete circuit underneath and coming to rest in one of the hidden loops underneath the main part of the layout. This is another old timer. They used to have, back in the early days, a fleet of these, but there's now only 1 or 2 that are left. They're part of the historic fleet, and like the steam engines, are brought out on occasions for special events and can be hired for charters. They're known as a baby crock, and they're in fact articulated. Wonderful old machines. Got a rake of old-fashioned coaches as well. Baby Croc's got the road, green in the other light. Those signals that I do have on the layout are all working ones. And here it is, arriving back at Davos after its latest excursion. Having just uncoupled automatically, this one moves off. What you can hear are point motors and switches. Slow motion point motors in action. They're actually known as tortoise motors. Another old-timer moves off the shed. This one also used on special occasions. Both for freight and passenger services. This is the more modern version of an electric shunting engine. Off to pick up some wagons from the freight depot. The buildings, by the way, were all made from various kits. And most of them have lighting inside them. There's a close-up of the freight depot at Davos. With its yard crane. And lots of activity. There's a surprising amount of freight activity on the real railway. And with, of course, a lot of snow in the winter, and often is the only realistic means of transporting goods. Back to Cloisters, with yet another locomotive and its train appearing from the hidden loops underneath. This is another Glacier Express. Once arrived, the old steamer sets off down into the hidden loop. See the flashing lights for the level crossing? Most of that class of locomotive have now been replaced by more modern electric multiple units. But my layout, I want to remain as it is, to represent the system as it was in the mid-1990s, when we first knew the system. There's quite a difference in height from the extreme lower level up to that upper level, which is probably in the order of 18 inches or so, maybe even more. This time we see a double-headed freight train coming from the hidden loops. It is in fact quite common to see double heading on the system, particularly for freight trains. Note the 4 lovely old-fashioned cement wagons at the rear. This one's pulling into the loop at Sarava, no doubt to await the train to pass in the opposite direction. Now we have a complete change. This in fact is a little diesel tractor locomotive belonging to the permanent way department. You can tell that because it's painted yellow, and the wagons are either painted yellow or that dark brown colour for that permanent way department. We've obviously got some work to do along the track somewhere. seems to be struggling a little bit and grinding up the hill. Anyway, there are the workmen that you can see, and it's stopping there. No doubt to pick them up and or to drop off some further supplies. Another little diesel tractor on the layout is this one, which is part of another permanent way train, but this one specifically with a platform on top for use in maintaining the overhead catenary. Naughty driver, he's actually going past a stop signal at danger. Davos main station. This gives a good idea of how it travels up to the top, then comes down through that tunnel. There we see a close-up of a little cafeteria that one finds quite regularly up there. These are the control panels of the layout.